Probably when my mother read me bedtime stories, I wasn't able to go to sleep before my mother finished a book. So yeah, that would be my first memory of a book.
I can't remember the first book I read, but I know that the book I learned how to read on was about the caterpillar, and it was a pop-up book, and I still remember the whole story about it.
I remember one day taking a book out of the bookshelf and pretending to read like the grown-ups, but couldn't decipher anything. And from that day on, I always wanted to be able to read and decipher the book itself.
My first memory of a book is probably reading the encyclopedia for little kids about big things, and remember how captivated I felt by it. So it was a really enchanting memory, and it was definitely the best one for a first memory of a book.
I think that my first memory of a book is Tom Gates, which I got as a present from my family. It being really popular in my friend group persuaded me to actually read it, this representing the beginning of my passion.
So, the first memory of a book that I ever had was when I was 4. My mom had just bought me Cinderella, and she tried to teach me how to read.
In primary school, I remember that I was supposed to read some books that I didn't really enjoy, and I used to ask my mom to read them to me before I went to bed.
My parents didn't actually read me any bedtime stories. They had me listening to an audiobook when I was little, and I just kept listening to this audiobook over and over and over again. And at one point I could actually recite all of it, so that was my bedtime stories.
My parents used to read me the Disney book collection that included most of the Disney stories about princesses and faraway lands. And I also loved listening to the Hans Christian Andersen books because I thought that was just really interesting, and I loved that style of writing. So I think that was a really important first lecture of mine.
The only thing I remember about bedtime stories is my mom reading me those classic books such as Toy Story and Snow White, which I already knew by heart since I was a big fan of the movies, making it easier for me to truly understand and like them.
So, before bedtime, my parents used to read me fables from a book written by Lev Tolstoy, and it still remains one of my favorite books till this day.
Yes, especially my mother. When we're both free, sometimes we sit on the couch together and we read different books, and then if we have time, we discuss them.
I know that my mom loves reading from the stories that she told me about her childhood, but I also know that she doesn't have so much time to read now that she's an adult, so I feel like she's not so keen on reading anymore.
My parents love reading. My dad has a publishing house for thriller and crime books, and my mother loves to read more sci-fi and adventure type books. So I grew kind of surrounded by people who read all the time, so I enjoyed reading as well.
They do, and I think it's really important to draw an example from your parents by also seeing them read. So I think that it's also important for parents to read so that their children can also get that habit from them, because I don't think it comes that naturally if your parents aren't used to reading as well.
Even though my dad isn't really keen on reading, my mom really loves it, and it was actually a great example for them.
My parents absolutely love reading. They try to encourage me to read more every day. And they tell me that I should read now because when I'll be older, I won't have time because of work, which is their case, unfortunately.
Yes, my bedroom, because it's quiet and nobody disturbs me from reading.
I don't have a favorite place for reading because when I'm reading I get very distracted, and so I have to change the places I read in so I can focus on the reading. For example, I go outside or I read in my bed.
My favorite place to read is in the hammock. I like to read in nature to be a peaceful and safe place so my mind can be focused only on the book.
I love reading in the comfort of my own room because I'm far away from any distractions, and I feel like it's kind of a refuge for me because I get to sit there with my own thoughts and listen to music and just let my mind wander around these lands that these books describe so well.
My favorite place for reading is usually my bed since it's really comfortable, but I also enjoy reading outside because I find it relaxing.
My favorite place to read is my room, specifically in my bed, because it's just warm and comfy, and I feel comfortable reading over there.
If the book I finished has a sequel, that would probably be the next book I would read.
I get very picky when it comes to reading. For example, if I pick a book 1 week before I start reading it, I change my option 1 hour before I decide that, okay, this is the book I want to read. So there's not really a way that I decide what I'm reading next, maybe the cover or...
Well, now I am at the point where I want to read the classics and the books that are well known and the must read. So I go off based on recommendations from my parents online.
For me, I look at book reviews and I find one that just piques my interest. So I feel like it's really important that a book just gets you excited about it, and it's not just it doesn't feel like just one chore that you have to do. It just feels like kind of an escape from anything else, and it feels like you get to discover something that is completely yours, and that really just makes you feel excited about life and the prospects of reading something new.
Picking my next book is never really a problem. I usually follow my instincts, thinking about which book actually catches my eye, or I listen to my teacher's suggestions, which end up being perfect for me.
So I have two options whenever I pick my next book. First of all, I check out the genre of the book, and then I read the description on the back and see if the plot interests me. Or my mom just picks out a book for me, and I try to read it and see if I like it.
My mother would often agree to drive me to bookshops, and I would look at books for countless hours if I could have time. And if I would like a book, my mother would always agree to buy me that book.
I remember that what got me into reading was me picking my own books because I was very pressured when my teachers or my parents told me what to read. And so the tip I want to give parents is to let their own kids choose what they read, and also let them choose if they like reading or not.
My tip for parents is that to not stress the kids into reading and to not make it seem like an obligation, like a hobby. On the other hand, give them a reminder once in a while, and also read around them so they can follow along. If they see, they'll do.
I think a good and kind of unusual idea is creating this contest for your children and yourself where you can actually realize how many books you read in 1 year, because it also keeps them really interesting. And I feel like it's really important to set a goal, like decide on what number of books you would like to achieve per year, and then just work toward that goal for the entire year. And I also think that it's important to give children the freedom to choose their own books, even though they may not be what you expected of them, but it's really important for them to find that taste or reading pattern that they have. And also, as I said, show children that the habit of reading is not unusual and that you also have it. So I think that's really important, and it's a good way to stimulate this kind of excitement and habit of reading.
One and only tip I have is to listen to them, to let them make their own decisions, because reading things they enjoy could make it entertaining and could make them interested in it.
So parents, if you want your kids to read, first of all, if you're at the start of the whole lecture journey, maybe try reading the book to them first of all, because children see their parents as a model, and they'll most probably want to try reading as well after they see you doing it. And also, make sure to take your kids to the library to the library or bookshop every once in a while, because in that way they'll have the freedom of choosing their own books, and you can also try to give them suggestions.